welcome to the FounderVille.vc podcast. This is podcast number 4 is what this is. And we're lucky today. We have Mr. Bryan Davis, good friend of the podcast, a good friend of Founderville for sure. Bryan is the executive director of the Hill Institute. I'm going to give you a promotion. You're the CEO of the Hill Institute.
I love it. Upgrade. Everyone note that upgrade. Yeah.
So Bryan's got an incredible handle on the entrepreneurial community here in Greenville for sure. I mean, I say Greenville, probably across the state and the region. Over the last 6 years, as Bryan's built out the Hill Institute, you supported 175 startups through that process.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've been a part of some of the events that you guys have put on. 15,000 people have attended these events. It's an incredible ecosystem. It is phenomenal what Bryan and his team have built here in Greenville at Furman, supporting entrepreneurs and founders. So we're fired up to have you here today.
Man, I'm pumped to be here, guys. Thanks for letting me jump in with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. How, Bryan, just open-ended question. I mean, how in the heck did you find yourself supporting entrepreneurs in the way that you are? Because you're all in it nonstop.
Short answer, ADD, which is probably consistent with a lot of founders, right? Yeah. So short answer to that. Slightly longer, more serious answer would be, man, I love the energy of this space. Like, there is nothing like getting in front of somebody, whether it's your own idea, as you guys have done, or somebody else's, that you can inspire somebody that's thinking of something that may be world-changing new or it may be incrementally new, but of saying, how might we?
Yeah.
And like the energy around that, I don't really care where that takes me exactly professionally, but being able to be in a spot where I am now fits like a glove for combining all these kind of things together, of helping people kind of go from zero to something.
Yeah. I love that, zero to something. I mean, that's what it's about. It's moving it from ideation to actual creation, and you see a ton of that. I really don't know the story. I mean, how did you guys create the Hill Institute? Where did that come from?
Well, first of all, if Robert and Margaret Hill are watching, that's a big part of where this came from. So the real quick backstory in that is really a data-driven, as you know, a lot of things like this are. So you start looking at universities. What do students come into a university want to see? And based on some Gallup polls, this is back in like 2018, about 60% of the students that were coming to Furman were like, hey, raising their hand, we love entrepreneurship, innovation. We're really interested in that kind of stuff. What do you guys have to offer? And there were some great business classes. There's some really awesome professors there, but there wasn't a clubhouse for innovation and entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And so based on really that data and the vision of, I mean, honestly, the vision of President Davis and Robert Hill, who's the chair of the board at the time, is that, hey, what would it look like to start something like that? To start an institute dedicated to that can impact students, that can impact our community, and that can present Furman as like a thought leader and a known brand in this space. So that's really where that came from.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's incredible what you guys have done. There's no doubt. I mean, if you look across the state, really in the region, I mean, thinking about universities and what Furman's built, it's honestly, it's stunning, dude. The size of the university, what y'all done, I'm super impressed with it. So thanks for all the
long way in a short period of time. Congrats.
Heck yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Not without it. Awesome team, as you said, and a great community, great leadership, great supporters.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Give us a little snapshot. What does the Institute look like today?
Yeah. Different than what I did a few years ago. So our tagline, I should say our mission and our tagline maybe. That creates some context orientation for us. So our mission is we help you create entrepreneurially minded leaders that can transform their companies, their communities, the world. That's what we're about. Okay. The tagline, it's literally tattooed outside of our office on campus too, is we help you launch successful blank. And the reason why we have it like that is trademarked or it's in process, so nobody steal it. We love it. But with a blank is intentional around, like, it may be a venture, it may be an innovative career pathway for a student, it may be thriving communities, right? Like through entrepreneurship is that vehicle. But the biggest way we fill in that blank is what you guys have and stuff you've done, man. Like, it's creating an entrepreneurially minded leader. That's who you want to hire. Like, if you may not have to start a venture, but if you can have that type of mindset that you can learn, in my opinion, you really only learn that the best through some type of venture creation, some type of creating something from scratch. That's where you learn those skill sets. But if we can develop those kind of leaders for the future, That's who you guys want in your companies. That's who you are.
Yeah.
Right?
Bring it. I mean, that's the talent that we need in all the companies that we invest in.
Even as employees working for founders.
Heck, yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's. I think if we can lit up our companies with that type of talent, then we've got a heck of an opportunity to succeed and create a lot of value. Let's talk about some of the companies that you've seen, that you've worked with over the years. I mean, what's the biggest, I think, change that you've seen from when you've started and y'all started building the program and started running different programmatic themes versus today? And then if you think about the students in particular that are coming through Furman that you're working with, what are they looking for? The ones that are fired up about startups and entrepreneurship.
I'm going to answer this in a couple different ways.
Okay, yeah.
We may have to edit this later, but we'll see. So one way, we do a practical way. There's a business-driven excitement level, and then there's just the human factor level of why you want to do this. So I'd say like the business-driven way is like, hey, I'd love to figure out a more efficient way of how something works, or how, if I do have an idea, what's the pathway by which I progress that through to a company and a sale or whatever version of that may be. The other thing I've learned really personally through doing this at a university over the past 3 years is like, man, just make stuff fun. Like, it's not complicated. Like I think I've like, I want, there's a tendency to want, maybe this is a human thing, maybe this is a Bryan thing, to want to like complicate something. Man, at the end of the day, for the students too, are they gonna have fun?
Gotta have fun.
If we hang out, like, is it gonna be all serious the whole time, or is it like, hey, you might mess up, dude? That's hilarious. Don't worry about it. We'll write that one down, but we can do this differently. Like, creating events, creating programs, creating engagement with the type of energy that like people want to hang out with, right?
Sure.
And that's kind of how I feel like God's made me to be, and kind of who I am. But like, I think learning to lean into that has been a big lesson I've learned around how we activate. If that answers something,
I think it totally makes sense because the community has to have a soul and a spirit, and you bring that energy. That I know you get back energy from the creation, the creativity that comes from the founders, but. You know, I see you in front of these people and on stage, and you're a natural fit for it. You bring a lot of that spark, so you're helping to generate that. Kind of manifesting what you intend.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. The funny side note is just, as we talk about, I find myself learning more about myself as we're working with these founders, right? I'm sure you know that. Like,
I can relate.
So like one of the things I learned about myself is this thing I call comfort food factor, of like, this is a human thing, right? We need to do psychology and entrepreneurship. I feel like it's important.
Yes,
absolutely.
Really.
Hold that thought from
I'm sure I'm not the first. All right, let's do it. But even just this idea of like, you won't possibly be comfortable when you're doing something new that there's not a recipe for yet. Like, because you won't be able to figure it all out.
Yeah.
And being comfortable in that discomfort is something fun. One of the things I'll share in a small way with students in particular, a lot of times, like, y'all, you know what I used to hate? Public speaking.
Yeah.
Like, I was like nervous, throw up, like I hated it until I'd like learned to just be like, I'm just gonna have to get over that.
Yeah.
Because that's getting in the way of goals that I have in my mind. So I'm gonna work on getting comfortable with that, and no specific like secret formula other than just
do it more. Right? Do it more.
Yeah.
And don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah. I think that was a big thing, Scott.
Yeah.
Anyway, I kind of rabbit trail, but
being human.
No, it's true. I mean, look, part of what you talked about, I mean, not to go down the public speaking rat hole, but I do think it's important. I mean, students, golly, I mean, if I wish so bad that I would have learned how to tell a story back then.
Yes.
I mean, it took me so long to learn to tell the story. I mean, even with the first few companies I started, I was a bumbling idiot trying to communicate what we were doing, the power of the story, the ability to speak in front of people and get your point across. It is so. It is funny. So like, important.
You know, the times you kind of look back on things, and go, God. I was so wrapped up in the facts and so wrapped up in trying to present as this professional formula of this and this, and then the facts say this and this. You forget that what people really respond to is tell them a human story about how you had an envisioning, what drove you to say, there's something there. I think we can solve that.
Yeah.
And then here's how we're solving it. It's such a simple thing. Now, I mean, pattern recognition, right? I mean, how many pitches have you seen now? I mean, cumulatively, 10,000 pitches, over the course of time. You see the patterns. You see the patterns where some are super comfortable and they have that sort of resonance, where it's like, that's a truth.
Yeah.
That's a truth.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Wish I knew that stuff earlier.
Oh my God.
I love what you guys are saying. There's like, reminds me of two things. I'd love to like even just hear your quick opinion on this too, is like, but one from a foundational standpoint, the Hill Institute here at Furman, we early on, I said like, what are our pillars? Like not what are our KPIs?
Yeah.
Not like all the stuff that you would suspect. How many pitch competitions? How many people come to events and how many ventures have we launched and whatever, which we're proud of and those are great. But like, what are we developing in humans?
Yeah.
And what you guys just said reminded me of that really, of just like there's three pillars we think about. One is we crammed a couple together. I'm not a math major, so I'm not good at math, but we crammed two in one. Work with me. Critical thinking and self-discovery is pillar number one. Like how can we give you experiences that give you shots on goal for what you like, what you don't like, push you a little bit, learn a little more about yourself, right? And learn how to challenge things in a good and respectful way. Second one is what you guys were saying, storytelling. That's literally a pillar of every single program that we do.
That's fantastic.
Because it's what you said, like part of it is I'm creating what I wish I had when I was younger.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I wish I'd had some dudes kicking my butt on like, here's how you tell a good story or here's how, whatever it is.
Tell a story, don't be boring.
Yeah, right? Humans, it's what you said. There's a basic formula that humans like around that. So anyway, that's the soft skills, storytelling is a huge part we do. And then the last one's just good old-fashioned hard work.
Yeah.
My granddad, who ran for governor. Fun fact, Knox White actually worked with my granddad on his campaign in Greenville. He drove him around.
Wow.
No
I
kidding.
learned that recently, so shout out to Knox if he's listening to this.
That's funny.
But what my granddad would always say is he was like, man, it's amazing how lucky I get when I work hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Yeah,
and just seeing that play out in what we're doing here.
So
and
true.
I know you guys have war stories around that in your own businesses too.
Well, I mean, one thing you said talking about the storytelling too is the passion. I mean, the thing that fires me up when we meet with founders, and we talked about the guy we met with for lunch this week.
Yeah.
You're talking about passion. We met with this founder, and he is in the middle of the grind. I mean, he and his wife are sharing a car, but we got the story out of him about how he created the business, how he came up with the idea, and like he was not faking that passion.
No,
I mean, he knows it, and he knows it. And he wasn't trying to tell the story. It was just natural coming out.
In fact, he wasn't very good at telling a story.
No, he really wasn't.
You had to sort of pull it out.
Yeah.
But when you got that personal insight that this person had and what conditions they were in their life, and you combine that with this deep-seated kind of raw ambition of I see myself being this, I want to create this thing, right? Connecting those two dots together, personal insight and a raw drive to get to this thing, that's inspiring, right? And if you've been there,
100%.
You can recognize it and go, I'm not sure if that model works. I'm not sure if the valuation's right, but I want to be around this person some more and try to help them figure it out.
Totally agree, guys.
Just
absolutely.
try to spend some more time with them. How do you? You see so many ventures. You see so many people coming through the programs. I mean, how do you work with the individuals where fundamentally they're probably not ready?
Yeah.
They don't have that drive. They don't maybe have what just from pattern recognition that it's going to take. I mean, how do you work with them? And then how I guess the opposite of that, the ones where you see like there is something right here with this individual, and I know that if I put him with this other individual, that is like there's magic there.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you sort of assess through that and
that's a good
have
question.
discussions with the different individuals like that?
So that's a great question. So I kind of start to put people in buckets in my mind. Like I start creating this decision tree. Sorry if you've been the recipient of me thinking you were down one path and you weren't, but like for me to make sense of the world in this, there's the founder or the what I'll call there's probably three. There's the wannabe who just for all the right reasons, like this space seems fun, it's Hollywoodized, like there's energy around it, people get excited, they high five, woo, we could make $1 million, and then some of these people, it's probably like a parable of the seeds in the Bible if you read the Bible on this, but it's like you got this one group that's like, man, they start going down this path and they're like, you can tell from like day one, this is not the authenticity you guys were just talking about. They don't have the authenticity around why they're doing what they're doing, how it's going to play out. They don't have, it's fill in the blank on any number of reasons, but it's just not for them. So that's category one. And you guys have probably seen this too. Like, you usually feel that pretty quickly.
I call it a wannapreneur.
Wannapreneur.
There you go.
That's the other part of this shirt. Like, wannapreneur. That's really my title. I'm a wannapreneur, man. That's hilarious. I'll let you. I'll cut you guys in the license deal when I make the shirt. But so that's one category. Then you got the category that's like, okay, there's something special there. This raw something. Probably not this idea. It sounds ridiculous, but I also have learned that like more ridiculous sometimes, like, man, don't judge it too quickly.
Yeah.
Hear them out, but like, okay, they just need, like, I can see like you're gonna need to go down, you know, a great path of development before you're gonna be ready to be in that boardroom telling that story or get in front of that investor and like, okay, so that's a pathway where there's some programming and there's just some natural like pouring into people like to help develop them. And then the last category is just, you know, the Einstein, or maybe not even the Einsteins, but just the people that you're like, holy smokes, I feel so dumb around you. You've got this incredible thing. You've got the passion. You've got the idea. You've got the intelligence. You've got already a network around it. Like you are so genuinely curious to the nth degree about how might this come to fruition. And it's just this X factor kind of person.
Yeah.
I love when you come across those. I'm sure you guys know.
Absolutely.
So kind of think of it as like three categories, and there's just different pathways.
Really good categories, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
no
and
doubt.
we talk about pattern recognition all the time, right?
Yeah.
I mentioned it earlier on sitting through pitches, and what you're really assessing in the pitch is, yes, the content of the pitch, but you're really assessing that character, right?
Totally
you're looking
agree,
for
man.
that fire.
Totally agree.
And I'm going to use your three buckets because you do look for that third elusive category of is it there? You know, do they have all those qualities? And if they have those, then is the idea that they have right now also, and this is for kind of discussion on some things venture-wise are VC fundable.
Yeah.
And some things are potentially going to be great successes, but they're not a fit for VC land.
Yeah.
How do you kind of view, if we say the folks who end up in that third category, you're most likely to have something that can go somewhere big.
Yeah.
How do you help them assess that differentiation between what's VC fundable versus what is possibly successful through lots of other mechanisms, loans or self-funding or whatever it may be?
Yeah, great. I love that. And that question pops up a lot. Like we'll have people, won't surprise you guys. Like we'll have people, on the day one of a, GVL Starts program, let's say, which is a program intended for first-time founders in the Greenville community, real early stage before what you guys are doing. We'll have people come on day one and be like, hey, bro, man, so pumped to be in this. Dude, can you get me in front of Venture South? Or I need to get in front of this investor. I'm like, bro, you do not. I was like, probably, maybe not ever, but definitely not yet. And I don't say that in a demeaning way. It's just like, there's an education around this. Yeah. But to answer your question, Scott, like,
funny.
One of the things I think about is like, so which pathway do you go, right? Like, do you go that VC equity, route? Do you go, or does it make sense for you? And I say like, fit a couple of different ways. Number one would be how big, how fast.
Yeah.
And that's not the only answer that matters, but that's on a personal level. Like, how big do you want to go and how fast do you want to get there?
Yeah.
Because then, like, you need to attach rocket fuel funding mechanisms.
Right.
If you're like 10 out of 10 on both of those. You're like, okay, well, then it's like, all right, next part of triage. What about what you're thinking about? Like, what right do you have to play in that sandbox? Like, is there something you can really own that if I'm an investor, if you guys are looking at this, and I would imagine, I'm curious what you think, but like, I want to be like, hey, if I'm like dumping $1 million or $5 million into this, or even just a seed round to something, like, I need to know that it's not just your passion and just the like you want to go big fast, but like, what about this idea has a little bit of reason to believe it could change the game on something, and that you uniquely could own that. It doesn't have to be intellectual filed patents, but like something that you can have.
Right.
Yeah.
Something,
I'm trying not to say moat, but moat.
Right. Moat. Might as well say
moat.
it.
There you go. As I said it. Moat.
It's out there, right?
But the other side, I want to make sure I answer this too. I think you're asking is like, all right, what about the other category of people? It's like, hey, I really want to do the business.
Right.
And we're like, not going to be the equity route. My answer to them is like, welcome, the water's warm. Like, let's do it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Let's get you started here. You're probably not going to go talk to Venture South or these VCs, and that's great. You can create a great, successful business. Yeah. And we actually have, on day one of these things we do, we have these obnoxiously large letters that we sit in the back of the room, BIG, big, not BFG, big. So these huge, like purple glowing letters, and people are always like, what is it doing there the whole time?
Yeah.
So at the end of these like opening sessions, we go over that and we're like, hey, how big do you want to go?
Yeah.
And chances are you are not thinking big enough yet.
Oh, I love that.
Like, and so if you're the person that said that first category, I want to go really big, really fast, great. Think bigger. If you're the person, this happens a lot in some of these community facing things, you're like, hey, I want to do this cool t-shirt shop thing, or I'm making up a bad example maybe, but like, we're like, great, well, how could you create the biggest e-commerce crazy niche brand around specific types of e-commerce stuff? You run it out of here, but it's a global brand. You're doing, and just getting people to think bigger.
Think big, yeah.
Sometimes like you can really open up doors and push people. So it's fun to be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I'll compliment you guys on is, there are a lot of people who have this idea in their head that they want to be a certain thing. They want to be a founder. They want to do a certain thing. They want to start a venture.
Yeah.
And you guys are great encouragers, right?
Yeah,
and there's a lot of pathways to success.
Yeah.
And I'll give you for instance, we had a young guy who had built an app, had some customers, and eventually it was pretty clear that it was a real slog. Yeah. And at the same time, this same dude had the opportunity to go run his family's $30 million business. Like, what's important to you? And he said, well, I just want to be a success. Like, go run the family business right now.
Yeah. That's a great question.
This thing's a challenge. It's going to be a slog. If you want success, there's a lot of ways to be successful. And I love about your program is you guys just opened up those doors to say there are resources and there is encouragement and there is a way to plan to get there, seeing yourself big in the future. It doesn't necessarily mean you got to go get founderville.vc to back you or Venture South or somebody else.
Yeah.
You can do it without OPM, other people's money.
Yeah,
you can do it.
That's right.
The customer can pay you.
And it's actually great if you can do that.
It's fantastic.
That's a preferable route, dare I say, depending on what you want to do.
I mean, listen, in many cases, we're trying to talk to founders that we meet with.
Yeah.
You don't need venture capital. This is not, you probably don't want this type of capital for these reasons. And if you can bootstrap it or do it another way, do it all day long.
Yeah, totally.
You can control it and manage it and build it in a different way. Venture capital is not a panacea.
Right.
Like, this is not magic money. It doesn't solve everything.
I think one of the things that's helpful is you get all these people together and they get to commiserate because the journey is a struggle. It's not a struggle of like, oh, I got turned down for raising capital. If you really believe you got 15 people around you that are also in the same bus, and you can share notes on, oh, wait, you got a contract from a customer based on a prototype, and that's how you're funding that you quit your job, and the true story, right?
Yeah.
Customer contract, prototype of an app, enough money to quit the job to go full time, and that was the seed funding. Right. Those are true stories.
That's powerful.
Man, something you're saying, Scott, that reminded me of some stories and things Full disclosure, this can totally be record and go. We try things we have no idea how they will work sometimes. We totally do that. That's on record. We have some reason to believe we think something, but like we're a fan of. Hey, we're going to try cool things. One of those things we did was around something you just said of, man, like creating this community. Like the background of everything we're doing, and you guys are doing too, is like we're building a better community. Like we're building a community where ideas can thrive, where people can have a dream and find some pathway towards success. Like this awesome. So you guys are doing incredible work around what you're building, what you've already done into the community. So kudos. But one of the things we started doing, Scott, around that is like the celebrating the wins, right? So we started doing launch parties a couple of years ago, where we were literally like, man, this is such a grind. Like when you hit that contract or customer thing, like what if we just like got champagne, gave somebody a makeup award, we'll call it the Hill Hustle Award, and we literally just like, we'll rent a space or have a space downtown, buy champagne, invite whoever you want, we're going to pop champagne, give you an award. We want to just celebrate this moment for a second.
I love that.
And just take a time out of the grind and it inspires what we accidentally backed into is like just how much that inspires other founders.
Yes.
Not just that person, but so many other people who were like the night before. I mean, it's literally a true story. I won't say their name because I don't want to feel like they're called out, but the night before that party, and that she was coming to attend for somebody else. She was like, I was literally like about to click submit on canceling all these different subscriptions on things I needed to back up the software from something I'm building. And I came to this and I was like, nope, not yet. I'm not giving up. I can't give up on this yet.
Stay
and just
inspired.
like,
Stay
being inspired.
Yeah.
Well, the community is so crucial. I mean, it's really what we're doing now with Founderville and with you guys, right? I mean, it's not just about it's building it here, but it's like, look, we don't care where you're located right now. Come to Greenville and build.
Come join Team Greenville.
Yeah, as long as you come to the best place.
Come to the best place in the world. But I mean, the power of that, I mean, it's such a grind. It's such a struggle.
Yeah.
You need cheerleaders alongside you.
Right, totally.
We feel the same way, which is we're going to build this program all hanging out at Flywheel, right? Your space, our space, collectively, we're together.
Yeah.
And these companies, these founders, these entrepreneurs, inevitably, they are going to have terrible days. They're going to be down on their knees, right? Yeah. But if they've got this other group next to them and they got this other founder and this other founder, it's collectively, man, they can bring it up. And I think that's so needed.
Think about what we were doing in early January. You're kicking off a brand new year. It's first week of January. And so we got a group together for 3 mornings in a row to just have coffee with each other out at Flywheel. And everybody kind of got to kick their year off with a little bit of elbow rubbing and shoulder rubbing with other people like them that are getting ready to start their new year with ideas, and it just helps. It just helps to be around the same kind of birds of a feather, So to tell us a little bit more on what you're doing at Flywheel.
Yeah. So we launched. Well, so the quick backstory is you guys know, but if somebody's listening doesn't. This was an idea that started in 2019.
Golly.
And huge kudos to Sean Hartness, to Peter with Flywheel in particular, of just staying with the vision through thick and thin. Because there was a little blip on the radar called the pandemic that happened during the midst of trying to what if we did this innovation district idea type thing. But anyway, so started back then and then really developed into hey, how do we have a better version over time, a better version of a community building around physical space with entrepreneurs, with investors, service providers, all the stuff you guys are surrounding your startups and your portfolio with, physically co-locating all that is not a novel concept, but there is no innovation district in Greenville before this one. Yep. There are great organizations doing incredible stuff, NextGen, others shouting out to them, right? Doing incredible stuff, but there was no hey, we're going to create a whole campus over time. Here's phase 1. It's already, capital stacks there. It's coming. We've got private, public, academic partners. That the magic formula for waking these things up. Yep. So we're there right now. And then when you guys are coming in there, just think about it, right? We start getting to throw in students into the mix of the startups that need special projects. Yep. You start getting, academic research if you need that for certain things. Sure. You start getting these resource providers already there. You guys are running a program out of there. We're bringing, stuff from institutes at Furman that can help, hopefully level up. How do we create the best type of curriculum that can best serve these founders at this stage? All these pieces start coming together. Man, this is going to be magic.
Awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, somehow this thing came together where it's us, it's Founderville, right? It's the Hill Institute. We're using the Center for Innovative Leadership.
That's right. Yeah.
We've got this incredible space at Flywheel Co-working. We have Flywheel Foundation. All these things have come together to put us in a position to really do something special. Yeah. I think it's powerful.
If I may, and this is a credit to you guys too, what's cool about this and this mix of you guys, what you're doing, what we're trying to do at the Hill Institute, the Center for Innovative Leadership at Furman, what Garrett Stern's doing over there, and hopefully this comes across in the right way. It started with not, hey, how do we make sure we do a partnership where you make more money, we make something, or we got to check this box. It started that's what I love about it.
All right.
Yeah, If there's probably another podcast on that's why. Here's why that's not the case on some of these. But it started with authenticity.
Yeah.
With founder first mentality, Greenville first mentality, which is totally where I felt aligned with you guys on that's what we're doing, at Furman here through this institute. That's what Greenville needs. You guys have already poured into this community over a lot of years.
You guys recognized in running physical events that the face-to-face, the eyeball-to-eyeball is super important.
Yeah.
And if the pandemic taught us anything, it's that probably two things that I take. One is you can do remote work and it works. And there's a lot of people and a lot of ventures and a lot of backers of ventures that love that, right?
Yeah.
You can find the long tail of, I want to invest only in yellow pencil manufacturers or blah, blah, blah. That what we came away with is, okay, that's a way to work, but people crave the face-to-face.
Yeah.
And when it was over and you could get people back together, there's a strong desire to be able to sit at the table. And that's about the time that we said, look, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be remote.
Yeah.
I think I think breathing the same air is important. And the ability for us and for you to see people day to day and encourage them and be in front of them is a big differentiator. So we are hyper local in that regard, right?
Totally.
And we want to do it here. We want to do it in this place.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for everything that you've done for us. I mean,
absolutely.
There is no doubt that what we're building collectively, it never would happen with you, without you, and without what Furman's doing for this program altogether. I mean, it's freaking amazing.
It's
fun. we're gonna go a long way
It's
together,
fun.
no doubt about
Agreed.
it. Well, in the spirit of time here, folks, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to podcast number 4 with Mr. Bryan Davis of the Hill Institute. Thank you so much, bud. I really do appreciate you coming out.
Awesome hanging out with you guys. Thanks.
Yep, you too.
Thank you.
Yeah.